So in this video we're going to create a roof. So we'll create and drag a roof plan onto our sheet, and you can see here is an example of what the finished roof plan would look like, or at least a preliminary roof plan. We'll add some more dimensions and notes later on. This is what it'll look like right now, and as you can see we have a roof pattern of this like shake roof, and then this direction of the slope and what the slope is, and we'll go over how to do all of that. So if we go to our drawing, here's our floor plan with no roof. What we'll want to do is create a level for the roof, and likely most of us already have a level 2. So if you go over here to your project browser and you click on any of the elevations, I'll select the south elevation under elevations under the project browser. If you right click and hit open, you can open it, or double click on it, and we can see I've already named this level top plate. So if your level likely says level 2, so that this wall has been given a base constraint of level 1 and a top constraint of up to level 2. So here it says top plate because that's what I named it. So to rename these, you'll select the level, left pick, and it highlights both the height and the name, and you can left click onto the name, and we'll just name it back to level 2, so we're starting at what looks like to be the same place for everybody. Hit enter. It's going to ask you if you would like to rename your corresponding views, and if you were to hit yes, it's going to change these top plate views to say level 2. And for the purpose of this, we're going to hit yes and just let it rename them. And as you can see over here, I'm going to use the arrow key to select the yes on the little pop-up box and hit enter to hit yes. And you can see underneath my cursor that it changed them to level 2. So if we go back here, we could also change the height from here as well. You can select, left click the level, and then pick on the dimension, and you can see it says edit parameter, and we could change the top plate or the level 2 to any dimension that we would like. So we can make it 12 feet if we wanted, enter it in, hit enter, and then it will move the top plate or that level up. Since the walls are connected, it will move the walls up as well. And as you can see, it moved the walls up, and it changed that the top constraint is connected to now level 2 because we renamed that level. So we can come back here, click the level, left click into the dimension and change it back to 10 feet or whatever dimension you want. I'm also going to change this to top plate. Top plate is what they call the top of the wall. So where the wall comes up, there'll be a horizontal stud that will be called top plate, and that's where the roof trusses will sit on. And so it's going to ask you again about creating the corresponding views. You can arrow over to choose yes, and I'll move my mouse over here so that you can see where level 2 lives on the floor plan. And on the ceiling plan, we already have levels named level 2, and I'll hit yes and let them know that I do want them to rename those views to top plate. I hit enter, and then you can see it renamed them to roof plan, or I'm sorry, to top plate. They're sorted alphabetically, so it moved it from level 1 under L to T at the end, so top plate. So from here, we would need to then, if you don't already have a plan that is top plate, or whatever you're going to call this level, then you would need to create that view. So under the view tab, so you can pick anywhere to deselect, or hit escape to deselect anything that you have selected, or you can click in a blank space and it will deselect it. And then we can go up to our view tab and go to our plans, and then we can do floor plan. And we'll use this to create a plan for any plans. If you wanted to create a ceiling plan, you'd have to choose this reflected ceiling plan or a structural plan. But for a roof plan, we can choose a floor plan. It's going to bring up a window and it's going to show us all of the floor plans that are available to be created if they have not already been created. So right now we already have a top plate. So if you have a level 2 that you are using, and if you already have a plan created over here called top plate or level 2 or level 1, it's not going to show you these floor plans to create, and that's okay. You can just go in here and modify them. But if you don't have that plan, or if you wanted to create another plan based off of a level 2 plan, you can uncheck this box at the bottom of the window that says do not duplicate existing views. So you'll uncheck that so that it will duplicate existing views, and then you can select top plate again and it will create another top plate plan. So hit OK, and now it's created a top plate floor plan. Right now we're not seeing anything except for our stair. It is likely that either our view range is too high, so we can go over here to the properties palette and hit view range, and we can see that the view range is top plate and it's plus 7'6" above that. Our cut plane is 4 feet above that. And then our associates, so our bottom and our view depth are both set to 0. So basically it's stopping at the top plate. If you hit show here at the bottom left, you can kind of get an idea of exactly where all of these values are represented on this little sketch that they have. So my first guess is I'm thinking that we're not seeing any of the walls below because our bottom depth and our view depth are set to 0, so it's not going past the top plate. So the first thing I would do is try to set the view depth. So I'll click into this box and set it to a negative value so that it will go from the bottom, and then it'll go down -2. We'll do the same thing here. Hit apply, and then now we see our roofs below. Or I'm sorry, we see our walls below. A couple things to note in this is that when we created this new plan, I pulled these grids back, and because the grids are set to show a bubble on both ends, I'm going to have to manually select the grid and then uncheck this box to turn off that bubble so that I don't have a bubble here on the left. And I'll do the same thing with this grid above. So now we're looking down at the top of our walls. So this is like if we're at the top plate, we're looking down -2 feet so that we can see the walls below. So at this point we can now lay out our roof plan by going up to the Architecture tab, and about 1/4 of the way from the left is our roof by footprint. If you pick the little down arrow, it'll give you some other options, and you can hover over there to see what those would be. So roof by extrusion, you could draw a line in a elevation view or section view, and it will give you a roof based on whatever line you draw. Roof by a face, so if you have a mass in there that is like a kind of a wavy face or any mass, it'll generate a roof based on that plane that you pick. And here you can see where you can add a roof soffit. So underneath, when you've created a roof, often they will close off the soffit and have soffit vents, and you can see that they did that here. You can do that here by using the roof soffit. Roof fascia allows you to place a usually there will be a horizontal wood member that is on the end of your trusses, and so you can place that with the roof fascia. And the gutter, so here we can place a gutter on the end of our fascia so that we have a gutters on our roof. But for this, we just need to get our roof in, and we'll use roof by footprint at the top, and it'll bring us into the boundary editor so that we can create our footprint. As you can see, it automatically selects on the property just a generic roof, which we can leave for now because we can modify that later. It's going to be the base of the roof is going to be set to the top plate with a 0 inch offset from the base offset, and then there's some other options here we'll go over later as far as how the rafters get cut. You can have them cut vertically or horizontally. And another thing before you start placing your roof, up here at the top left there is a overhang. So that's likely set to 0 when you first pull this up if you haven't done it before, if you haven't given it an offset. So you would come over here before you draw any of your boundaries. You can set it to whatever offset you want. I'm going to use 1 foot so that the roof will extend 1 foot past the boundary line, or actually it'll create a boundary line 1 foot from where you pick your roof outline. And the other thing is the defined slope. So right now all of our boundary lines will define the slope of the roof, and we'll change that once we get our roof drawn. Here at the top you can see the mode where we can draw different line geometry to define our roof boundaries, similar to the other boundary creations. And this one has a pick walls option, which is automatically selected, and so you'll hit this pick walls if it's not selected, or just we can start our boundary creation now with it because it's default already picked walls. So that means it's going to pick these walls to define our roof boundary. So I'm going to hover over the first wall that I want to pick, and you can see the little dashed line is indicating the offset. So the offset, or the overhang that we defined, that's where it's going to place that roof boundary. Now to select all of the walls in this wall chain, you hit tab once when you're hovering over the wall to select all of the walls, and then left pick, and it will create our roof. Right now it's giving it a slope of 9 inches over 12 inches. And so that's how we will define the roof slope. At this point, you could actually exit your roof command by hitting the green check at the Modify tab to finish the edit mode. And now we have a roof. As you can see, it is cutting off part of our roof because of our view range. So just like we had to go give it a negative value to see the walls below, we're going to have to give the view range a positive value up above. So if we go to our properties palette, we'll hit view range, and right now the cut plane is 4 foot and the top is 7'6". So at the 9 and 12 slope, our top of our ridge is going to be really high. So what we'll want to do is change this to a value that's much higher than that the ridge of our roof. So we'll change this to, let's say, 20 feet for now, just so we can see our roof, and we'll change the cut plane at 18. So if we were to go show, what we're saying is the cut plane, which is designated at number 2 here, we're going to want it to cut 20 feet above the associated level, and then we want 18 feet above the associated level, and the top range will be even higher than that. It'll be this one will be 20 feet up, and this cut plane will be 18 feet up, and we'll see if that gets us above our roof ridge. So hit OK, and it does. And so now we can see our outline of our roof. But if we noticed in my roof plan, I changed the way that the roof is sloping. So if we were just to hit OK, it would give us a roof based on the outline, and as you can see, what it did is it went 45 degrees up this way to the ridge, and then back down to this side. Obviously it would be lined up with that corner, but that's okay for this purposes. You can see like the difference between what it did and what we want. So what I want is based on my reference drawing. I want there to be gabled ends. So right now it gave like a hip roof, which is from each corner it goes up whatever your slope is and then ties into the next ridge or the roof. But you can see on this photo that they actually have gabled ends here, which that just means the roof slope goes up and comes back down on the other side, and it does not angle the roof. The pitch does not all join together in a hip style roof, and I'll show you what it did in our. So you can see the difference where it took all of the corners here and went up to a ridge based on the slope. And if we were to open up our 3D architectural view, go to View and Tile Views, we can see what it looks like in 3D. So instead of having that gabled end, it went up to a ridge on all the locations, and you can see how it kind of gives some funky situations here, which this might not be bad, and this might be desirable based on what you want. And let's say I wanted to have this hip style roof was preferable to the gabled roof that they show in my reference material. You could just leave it, but I'll show you how to make it and how to change and modify this roof once we've created it. And as you can see, I'm holding shift and middle mouse click to pan around. You can see that it gave 1 foot overhang all the way around. And so let's modify our roof to look more like our reference drawing. So you can select the roof. You can either double click on the roof, or you can come up here to edit footprint. And now you can edit the footprint. So looking at my reference material, it looks like they've got a gabled end here. Back there where you couldn't see it. Gabled end here. And a gabled end over the garage. So I'll show you how to change your roof to look like that. Minimize this window. And right now all of these little angles, these slopes, are telling Revit how to make this roof. So now it's basically saying each of these lines it wants from the corner to go up to make a slope. And so we can turn those off by selecting the lines we do not want a slope. So we'll select the line, and up here at the top it says define roof slope. And if we uncheck here on the properties palette, after we've selected this line, we can uncheck define roof slope. And as you can see, the little triangle went away, showing the slope. And now if we were to exit out of this, hit finish edit mode, instead of the lines coming up here to form the hip of the roof, it's now coming straight across. So the slope is going up and back down and not kind of cornering it off here. So if we were to go to our 3D view, you just click into our 3D view, hold shift and middle click to pan, and you can see what it did there. Instead of finishing off the roof, it now has this gabled end. So to further modify that, to get it to look like what our reference material is, we're going to go back into our plan view with the roof, edit the footprint, And because this reference material shows almost two roofs, so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to create a roof here that's going over the garage, and then a separate roof that is going to go over the main part of the house. As you can see in my photo, I've got more work to do for my roof because they actually have this roof that extends over the deck. And so it looks like to me I'm going to have to create 1, 2, 3 different roofs. And I imagine on the back side a 4th roof that will also encompass this, so that we can have our Revit model kind of follow what our reference material roof looks like. Okay, so we'll go back to our Revit model. So because I'm going to put a separate roof here, I'm going to go up here and pick the Trim Extend Corner command on the Modify tab. Pick that, and then pick the 2 lines I want to trim. And so I want to trim this line and this line, because I'm gonna remove this part of the roof. And now it's just telling me that these 2 lines are overlapping, and that's okay because we're going to delete them. So I'm going to hit Escape. I can hover over this first line and hit Tab to select all of them. So that's hover over the first line. Before you pick, hit Tab, and then you can select the chain of walls, and now when you pick, it'll select all 3 of those lines, and we'll hit Delete. Oops, it put me back into the command. So let's do it. Hover over, hit Tab to select, left click, and let's just do right click on the line, scroll down to the middle and choose Delete. And now delete that boundary of walls over the garage. And then the next thing we'll do is we don't want this roof line to have a slope going up to the ridge this way. We want this to be a gabled end as well. So we'll select this line and we'll tell it to not define a roof slope. Uncheck Define a Roof Slope on the Properties palette. And now when we hit OK, we can see that it made this end a gabled end as well. So we're getting closer to looking like what our floor plan or our reference plan looks like. Next we'll come back in here and we're going to create a separate roof for the garage. So we'll go back up to the top and select Architecture, and then pick on the Roof by Footprint again. We can give it the 1 foot overhang, and we can select this wall. I'm not going to pick all the walls because I just want to create the walls for the garage. Pick each wall, make sure the dashed blue line is on the correct side because that's our overhang. Pick again, and then we can, since we can't see the wall under there, it's not going to give us an opportunity to pick it. We can just pick this line up top here into the Modify and just draw a line connecting the 2. I'm going to actually align this line that we just drew with the grid by picking a line on the Modify tab. So I'll pick a line, pick the grid, because I know that's my face of stud, and then pick that. I think I might change that later because I actually want it to be, so if that's the face of stud, I think that'll be okay actually. So now before we exit, we can escape out of the Align command. So if you're in a command, move, offset, any command, if you're in the screen, if you just hit the escape button, it will exit out of that command. And so here we want to pick this line because we don't want this to define the slope. And we can actually do two at once. So if you select that, come over here to this other side where we want no slope to be defined, hold the control key down and it will give you a little white arrow with a plus, denoting that it's going to add this to your selection set. And you can pick that now with the left click, and you can see it highlighted both of those lines. And then we can uncheck define roof slope, and it will do that for both of those lines. And you see the roof slope angle triangle is gone, and you can see that what defines the slope is the line. So basically this triangle is saying start here and go sloping up, and then start here and sloping up. And so that's what those lines did. So now they don't say to slope up, they're just going to follow the slope that's set by these two north and south lines. So now we should have our garage roof. We can come up here to the mode and hit finish edit mode. And now you can see we have our roof similar to our reference material, that we have this roof that is starting to look like what we have chosen for our house. Again, it's not hard and fast. You don't have to keep this. This roof is just a reference. If you wanted to make it different, you absolutely could do that. This is just our reference material, and I'm showing you how to get it to look like the different options you can to make it look like you'd want it to look. So the next thing we want to do is where we have these roofs, as you can see, there are some issues. And what I'd want to do in this issue is I'm actually going to select this roof. I can select it in the 3D view, come back over here in my plan view, and I'm going to edit the boundary. And I don't like the way it intersects the other roof, and so I'm going to hit align, and I'm actually going to align it with the edge of this roof so that they match up, which that makes more sense. So I hit finish edit mode, and as I pan around, I can see that my two roofs line up. So I'm just using shift, middle mouse click, and panning around, and the wheel to zoom. So the next thing we'd want to do is, because right now this would be a very breezy house if we did not have the walls extending up to this roof. And so I'm going to pick these walls in the 3D view, and at the top you can see it adds some options for attaching, for editing the profile, making wall opening, and so on. We're going to want to attach the top / base to the roof, so we can pick that, and now it's going to allow us to attach the wall to the bottom of this roof. And before we pick that, we can notice here it tells you the attachment type. So the attached wall is at the top right now, and if we were to pick this, it would be attaching the base. So we want it to keep it at attached top, and then we will come back over to our 3D view and pick the roof. And as you can see, it now, if you escape or click in the blank space, it now has extended our wall up to where our roof is. Now the nice thing about this is it being attached to the wall is if we move this roof, so let's say we want to move it 2 feet above the top plate, enter 2 feet on the properties tab under the base offset, and if you click back over here, you can see now the roof moved up and the wall stayed attached. Now these other walls are not attached, so they didn't move with it. They're attached to the top plate level. So if we select those, you can pick this first wall, and to do multiple walls at a time, you can hold Control It allows you to add another wall or another entity into your selection set. Pick that and let go of the control, and now we can attach both walls to the top. Now we can pick the roof, and it will attach these side walls to the roof. You can see if we pan around, hold shift and middle mouse click, and we'll pan around. Or if you watch the other navigating 3D views, you can use this scroll wheel to then orbit by clicking the different parts on the scroll wheel to move in and out. You can actually rewind, so if you liked a view from before, you can kind of go back. You can use this pan, click on the pan to pan around. My workflow, I like using the shift and middle mouse click to pan or to orbit, or just middle mouse click to pan, and then the middle scroll wheel to zoom. So we can come over here and attach this wall to our roof, and now it's looking more like a building. So in this case, this wall in here, because it's an interior wall, we can also attach that to the roof. So we can come up here, and actually before we do that, so if we were to do that, you can see the little graphic there. If we were to do that and attach this wall to the roof, because it's an interior wall, if you hit escape, it's not going to have the same pattern as the exterior wall. So for me, I would want to hit undo, oops, I undid too far. That's okay, you can click the down arrow for redo, and we can select redo on this little quick access toolbar all the way back to where we want. So let's just undo one more. And so let's click this wall again, hit attach top and pick, and I want to draw a wall on top of this wall below, just to give ourselves that the same look here. And so before I forget, I'm going to select this roof, and remember we gave it a base offset of 2 feet just to show you how the roofs are attached. We're going to give it a base offset of 0, enter, and it will move that back down to the correct height, and so everything lines up all nicely. And so to get a roof up here, I'm going to actually draw this roof in 3D view. I'm going to select this wall that I want it to be similar to. I'm going to right click and create similar, and I'm going to go check to make sure that it's set, the base constraint is set to top plate, and then I'm going to make sure that the top constraint is set to ridge line, but I'm actually going to make it unconnected. Excuse me. And I'm going to give it a dimension of an unconnected dimension of 5 feet and see if that is acceptable. It kind of doesn't matter, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to this roof. So it's going to start from the top plate and go up 5 feet, and then I'll attach it to this roof. And so on the plan view, I can pick anywhere. Right now I'm going to pick it centered on this wall, but we can move it once we place it. And now you can see I'm drawing the wall in the plan view, or in the 3D view. So right now it's showing 90 degrees from the perpendicular wall there, and I'm just going to pick. I'm going to escape out of there because I did not choose the right wall type, or I'm not placing it on the right side. So I can select, hit spacebar to flip the wall so the exterior is on the correct side. Escape again. Then I'm going to use my align Onto the Modify tab, align here, pick that. I'm going to go back into my view and I'm going to hover over the face of this wall I want to align it with, pick that, come back up here, align it with that face. As you can see, it got cut back a little bit, that's okay. Going to trim this wall, or extend this wall to this wall by going to Modify tab and picking this Trim Extend. I'll pick the Trim Extend, select the end of this wall, so I'll hover over the wall until I get the end and extend that wall to there. And at this point I can escape out of the Trim Extend command, select the wall again, go Attach Top Base, and then pick the roof, and then now my roof is connected to, my wall is connected to that roof. One more thing to do, so you see that it created this line. You can go up here to your Modify tab again, and then over here there's a join, and basically we can join geometry, so that you can see a little view that they join this wall to this floor plywood so that there isn't that line. So we'll pick join, come back over here, pick the first wall, and then move over to pick the second wall, and now our walls look seamless. So the next thing I want to do is, because I have a model pattern set, I want to align the patterns. And if you zoom in, you can see that they're offset. I can go back to the Modify tab, hit Align, come back down, and it's trying to pick the wall, and that's okay. What you do is you hover over one of the lines and hit Tab until you pick one of the lines you want to align it with. So Tab will cycle through all the options. I'll pick the line on my finish. If yours has finish, it may not. This can also be done later. Move over to this other wall and do the same thing. Any of these lines, I hit Tab until I get the line, hit Align, and now my siding, or the lines that represent my siding, all line up. And I can hit Escape out of the Align command, and now my house is starting to look more like a house. And let's do this. Since we just did that join, I want to go back here. I'm going to pick this roof. I am going to extend it back to this wall. I'm going to edit footprint in the 3D view, and then I'm going to pick my align again on the Modify tab. I'm going to pick this face. I want to pick this face to align my wall with, or my roof with, and I am going to put it back to the face of that wall. And then what I'm going to do is hit OK, and as you can see they overlap like we did in the beginning. And what we'll do is we'll use that join command. Up here on the Modify tab, we can pick join, we'll pick this roof, and then this roof, and now we have a seamless roof. And if you take a look at roofs, this is a pretty common thing that happens. They'll frame these trusses in here, they'll extend this, overhang, and you'll have this kind of setup. Is pretty common in a roof. So I think that's a lot to take in at this one lesson. What I'm going to do is I need to get my roof patio started getting it modeled in here, and I'll add more roof elements. The other thing too, if I'm going to shift and middle click to pan around, I do not like the way this roof is looking back here. I think it looks kind of silly, And so what I'm going to do is modify this further, and when I do that I'll show you another little video of how I modified that. But before I go, I'm going to pick this wall, I'm going to come up here, attach to top, and then I will pick the roof again. And as you can see, it aligned all through here. And I guess before I sign off here, let's modify this roof one last time to see if I can get some of this weirdness to be fixed. I'm going to go back to my reference plan and look. So it looks to me so that maybe the roof on this side might want to extend out to this porch. But for now, let's just try to clean up these lines here. So I'm going to select my roof. I'm going to edit the footprint. I'm not going to have all these lines for the roof here, so I'm going to pick anywhere in the blank, and I can hold the left pick and come down here and window over all of the lines I want to get rid of, and then right click on the lines and delete. And let me see, what do you think is the best way to do this roof? I think what I want to do is to see how it looks, trim, extend. I'm going to trim to corner this line and this line. And I'm going to move with the align command this line to the face of this bump out. So I just undid there, Control Z. I'm going to pick the face of this wall to align this line to. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to pick this line and I'm going to move it. I'll pick move up here in the modify tab. I can pick anywhere because I've already selected the line, and then move my mouse to the direction I want the line to move to. And at this point I can enter in a value. I'm going to enter 1 to signify 1 foot. So I have my 1 foot overhang from that bump out. I'm going to check out to see what it looks like. My one concern is that, yep, it's going to maybe have some funkiness here, but that's okay. We'll just hit OK to see what it looks like. And then the other thing too, so there's going to be some weirdness here that I'm going to need to look into once I start, modifying the roof. I don't really like the way that looks with that kind of weird roof, but we can see that we've extended our roof here. I think it would be better to extend this roof over here too, but we'll kind of see how this plays out as we start modifying how this roof is set up. You can see there's some weird hip roof stuff going on here, so let's go back into our plan, edit this footprint, and see if we can fix it up. And so what you'd want to do is start removing the lines that define the slope to see if that maybe is going to help. That did not help, so I'm going to Control Z and undo a couple times, and maybe I want to take a window over here, left click and drag, and take off the slope here to see what happens. Hit OK. I like the way this end looks better, but I do not like this little open area here. So, I think we can start trying to kind of play with how this roof is laid out. And maybe what I want to do to give it a simpler kind of layout here is I might pick over here, left pick over here, window over both of those two lines, select them, right click, delete, and I go up to my trim, extend to corner on the modify tab, pick the two lines, and I'm just going to round this roof off and see if I like that look better. And hit OK to exit out. And now we can see a little bit more. That might be more desirable that the roof comes out to here. I am going to have a secondary roof that comes out over this deck, so as I keep working around, there's going to be some issues like that you're going to run into, which are good because it's going to help you to learn the software trying to find those things. So if you're running into issues, let me know. As you can see, as I'm messing around with it, I'm finding issues. I'm going to trim this wall on the Modify tab, which I was already on. Trim Extend, single element. I'm going to pick the face of this wall, and I'm going to pick this wall to get it to extend all the way over. And then I'll pick this wall. You can see the little gap there, and I'm going to attach it to this roof. And I've got a little gap there, but I'll clean that up. If you have a little gap like that, it's probably because this wall is not joining this wall correctly. Because this wall is an exterior wall that I drew on top of this other wall, and so it doesn't want to join. And so let's see what we can do about that. We can try to trim corner and see if that will join it the way we want it to join. And that didn't work. And I think because there's that interior wall below, it's kind of messing things up. So we'll go back to the Modify tab for one more thing. We can see that there is wall joins over here, kind of a quarter of the way over, maybe a third of the way over. And it shows you how the walls are joined. And so you can change that. So let's click this wall join, and we'll go back to our 3D view, and you can see as we hover down here at the bottom, it was showing you what the walls are it's going to join. So I'm going to hover over that, and I'm going to pick, just to get that yes, I want to modify those two joins. So I hovered over here. I'll escape out of here and do it again. So I'll go to my joins up here on the Modify tab, wall joins, and I'm going to see if this will fix it. So I'll hover over this wall that I want to join. I'm going to pick once, left pick, so that it knows which walls I want to join, and I'm going to see if I can cycle through these joins to see if I can get the joint that I want to look right. So I'll hit next, and bam. It now modified that wall to look correctly. You can keep cycling through to see what kind of different joins that are there, but on mine it did the first one right. So now I can escape out of this join command, and because we lined up all of these lines around the building, you can see that they lined up again. So and I think this will really be it for now. We kind of got the idea of how to create a roof and how to connect our walls to it. We got an idea of how to get everything put together and modify our roof so that it looks like a proper roof and not have some of those weird kind of hip roofs. I might come back in here and throw some of those back in if I can figure out a way that I think this back wall is really driving the way this roof is going to look, and I don't have a view of that, so I'm just going to have to guess, right, and do what I think looks best. So I think that'll be it for now. And actually, before we end, let's just take the last few minutes. I'm sorry, this has been a long video, and we'll put this roof that we just drew onto a sheet. So as we remember, if we go to create a sheet, we need to go up to the top, hit the View tab, go over to a little bit from the middle and do Sheet, Our title block is already loaded in there, so all we have to do is hit OK. Now that we have our sheet, you can see that it created the sheet over on your project browser as A111 unnamed. I've already made a roof plan when I was kind of setting this exercise up, but we'll just redo it again because I also have a new top plate which I renamed the roof plan. And so what I'm going to do here is, now we've got our sheet, I'm going to go to that top plate one that we were working on. I'm going to left click and drag across onto our sheet and then place it. As you can see, it was still at the 1/8 inch scale, so it's real small on our view. So once you've placed it, you can select the view, hover over the view. You can see it highlight when I move my mouse over. Select it, change it to your 1/4 inch equals a foot. Hover over it again. Hold the left mouse button down and drag it centered onto your sheet. At this point, I'm going to resize my title since when I have this view selected, I can resize it. I'm going to hit escape or pick off the screen. I'm going to hit escape. Hover back over just the title, not the view, because if you hover over the view, you can't move the title independently. So I'll hover over the title, pick it, move my mouse so that I get the little move cursor, and then move my title centered under the sheet, under the view. And then so I'm going to, now that I've moved that, I can pick this view. Up at the top, you can hit activate view so that you don't have to go back to the actual view. You can modify it in the sheet. Hit activate view. On the properties tab with nothing selected, I'm going to turn on the crop view, crop region visible, so that I get my crop view to show up. And I'm going to select the crop view. I'm going to go to edit crop. I'm going to hover over the magenta line, the boundary lines, hit tab once to get the chain of the wall, so I'll hit tab and I'll give you the chain. I'm going to pick all of them and I'm just going to delete them. So I right click, select delete, and then back up here to your modify tab, there'll be the draw palette again with the options that are available for this type of region. And I'm going to choose rectangle, and I'm going to just pick this rectangle and draw a rectangle view, so that it's easier for me to do this than to stretch each side or stretch them all. It's quicker for me, so I try to do a lot of the things that are more efficient if you're doing a lot of views. So once you're done, you can go back to the green check and check, and then I'm going to turn off this crop view, or I'm going to turn off the crop region that's visible. Uncheck that box on your properties, and then to get out of this view, let me see, is there a modify tab? Let's see. Well, to get out of the view, there should be another button for deactivate view, but I'm not seeing it. But that's okay. Let's check the modify tab again just to see if I didn't see it. I usually use a shortcut key, but to get out of a sheet view, you can either double click, left click out and away from the view. So I'll do that, and now we're out of the view. Let's go back in the view. We can activate view again, or you can right click anywhere when you're inside of a sheet view and then pick deactivate view. And now you're back out into your sheet. Let's go over printing this PDF just to get our preliminary roof plan done and printed. So you'll go up to File and Print, or you can hit Escape, and then up here also in your quick access toolbar that you can also hit Print here, or as you see it shows Control P is print, and your quick access toolbar may be at the top. You can change it with this little down arrow to show above ribbon. And hit print. It'll bring you up here if you're using the Bluebeam PDF printer, so you can select whatever printer you want to print to a PDF. Make sure that your settings are set up. So we created this in class and on the last Wednesday's video, but I thought I'd go over it again since I didn't have a separate video for that. So you can pick the 20 by 36, oops, actually it's 24 by 36. So we'll change that real quick here. So I just want to rename my callout, so it's 24 by 36. Make sure your sheet size is 24 by 36 or whatever your title block is. Make sure it's offset from center, offset from corner, and zoom. Fit to page, you'll want it to be, we'll just zoom everything to fit your page, but you want it to be zoomed at 100%. And then have the on color, high, make sure it's vector processing is checked. Make sure you have hide unreferenced views tags checked. Hide crop boundaries, so if you forget to turn off that crop boundary, it's going to hide it anyway. Hit OK. And if this is the first time doing this and you've set your sheet, your offset and zoom, you'll want to make sure and save as, and then save it as your 24 by 36 color. Hit OK. You can either print current window, which then you can get a preview of what it's going to look like when you print it. Hit print to go back to your print dialog. If you hit close, sorry, a little cat freaking out there. If you hit close, it will actually close out of the, if you go to preview and you hit close, it'll exit out of the print command. So you want to go hit print to get back into your print dialog box. And then if you want it to select a range of sheets, you'll hit selected views and sheets. So you can select that, then select the sheets you want to choose. In here it's going to bring up every single view you have in your model. To see only the sheets, you'll want to uncheck views. So it's going to show just sheets. As you can see, I've got my roof plan here, and it is checked. And hit OK. So now you can hit OK and it will print. It's going to say, hey, you've chosen to print one view sheets in a separate file. Do you wish to continue? I'm going to hit no just to show you why it's saying that. So over here in the file type, you can hit combine multiple views sheets into a single file or create separate files. For this situation, I'm just going to create a separate file because I want it to name it the same name as I have my sheet. I'll hit OK and I'll hit yes. It's going to bring up the print dialog box, and I've already got some sheets in here. And because I hit check, I checked a selected view, it's going to title it the project number and the sheet number, so I don't have to rename it. So I'm going to leave that as that, OK, and hit save. Now it's going to save my PDF, and it's going to bring open the sheet. So now that I have my roof plan. And one more thing before I go, I'm going to close this PDF. I'm going to minimize my PDF window. I'm going to go back into this view. One thing that I forgot to put on here is the slopes. So to find those, you go to the annotate, and then we'll do a spot slope. So annotate, tab at the top, spot slope. We'll come down here. It's in the spot slope, and then we can actually set some other parameters, but the default one should be fine. And we'll zoom in and pick on the roof to get our spot slopes in here. and it's going to tell us the pitch of the roof. And so you do that on all of the pitches here. And now we can print again, so we'll right click, deactivate view, Control P, or you can come up here to your quick access toolbar, print, and if you wanted to print just a current window, you can hit current window and get a preview and then hit OK. It's going to print to PDF, bring up the dialog box, and see now it's just given it a generic name. We can stretch out our windows here, and because we did not check a view, it's just giving us an option here to name it either Sample Project 2 Final, or we can name it whatever we want at this point, which you could have before, but at least before it kind of gave you an automatic view or automatic name. And I'm going to click over the one that I had just made and just save over the top of that one. Hit save, and yes, I want to replace it. It'll process. As soon as it's done, it's going to pop up in the window if you printed it in Bluebeam, and you can see that it printed. Now our sheet was set to the 24 by 36, so now if we were to take some dimensions off here, this should be to scale because we set it that way. So that, I think, will be done, and we'll actually go into, now that we have a roof, we can start making our elevations, which are already there. We just have to actually kind of do a few things to modify them and put them on a sheet. Also, I'm going to do a separate video over materials because that can be kind of funky. We kind of went over materials in doing the walls, but I want to do it again to show kind of just a separate video on how to apply materials to the different elements we have in CAD. So please let me know if you have any questions, and if things are not working right. And I'm going to think I'll do a separate video on printing too, just because it seemed like some people turned in their projects and they were not to scale. And I'll show you how to do that. I don't think I really showed you exactly well how to do that. So that's it for now. We'll get some other videos this week for creating our elevations and our materials.